just one halakha in the laws of Shabbat. There is a fascinating tour in the beginning of Ilchot Shabbat, Or HaChaim Siman Resh Mem Bet, where he talks about the mitzvah of preparing for Shabbat and spending money for the delicacies and the oneg of the Shabbat. Where he says, in the beginning of his commentary, Garsinam beperek kol kedve amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Yoseh, kol ha'me'aneg et Shabbat notnim lo nachala b'ri mesarim. Somebody that enjoys the Shabbat and has oneg, pleasure on the Shabbat, they give him a plot, they give him a piece, a nachala, a inheritance, belo mesarim, without any borders. And it's midah keneged midah, because he goes and spends money without shi'ur, without measure, and therefore he gets a inheritance without measure as well. Rav Nachman bar Yitzhak Amar af nitzol mishi'bud malchuyot. He's also saved from the yoke of government. And the explanation is over there similarly. He accepts upon himself the yoke of Shabbat, which is the oneg, and therefore he's relieved from the bitter yoke of the Malchiyot, the government, with its taxes and its servitude. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, kol ha'me'aneg Shabbat, notin lo mish'alot libo. A person that keeps the Shabbat with the oneg and he enjoys it, they give him his heart's desires in order that he will be able to have oneg himself. He's me'aneg the Shabbat, God will give him oneg. Amar Rav Chaya bar Abba Amar Rav Yochanan, kol ha'mishamer Shabbat kelcheta, afilu oved avodah zara ke'enosh mohalim lo. That the Shemirat the Shabbat is even so great it can lead him to make the Shuvah even for the worst averot like Avodah Zarah. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Elmaleh Shamri says Shabbat Lishona Kelcheta. If the Jewish people in the Midbar would have kept the first Shabbat, which they didn't, we see in the Parashan Shemot Tetzayin Chavzayin, it says Vahi Bayom HaShiv'i Yatzu Min Ha'am Lilkot, that they went out on that first Shabbat to collect the man. They shouldn't have. But if they would have kept that first Shabbat, lo shalta bahem uma velashon, they never would have been subject to the attacks of the Goyim. Because right after that parasha, it says vayavo Amalek. They were mehalel Shabbat, right away Amalek came. So the Mahari Avuhav, as brought down in the bit, Yosef says, Shim Amalek lo haya nilham b'Yisrael, lo haya shum am velashon nilham bahem. Which is, if Amalek didn't break the ice and fight with Klal Yisrael, nobody else would have followed. And therefore, he started it. Now, even though we beat them, but already the gates were open, that Klal Yisrael are not invulnerable, and therefore that started already the pushing the sinners to come and fight Klal Yisrael. All because why? Because the inyan of Hilul Shabbat. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, El-Maleh Meshamerim Yisrael Shtei Shabbatot, Miyad Negalin. The Jewish people would just keep 2 Shabbatot, immediately they would be Nigal. The Tur then brings down a famous mahloket. When it comes to the holidays, how are you supposed to celebrate the Yamim Tovim? Some rabbis were the opinion that say the holidays are totally LaHashem. You have to spend the day totally immersed in learning. And others say no, the day is spent Lachem, is spent in enjoying yourself. And therefore the Gemara makes a compromise and says, split it. Chetzio lachem, chetzio laHashem. But when it comes to Shabbat, everybody agrees that there's a lachem factor. That everybody agrees that a person has to enjoy the Shabbat. Kolu alma modim deba'inan lachem. And therefore one has to be careful in order to mishomer Shabbat with the inyanim, like he says, ashirim, in Bavel, the Gemara says, Ashirim shebechol ha'arasot. B'ma him zochim? What's the zekut they have that they keep their wealth? B'ma shebechabbedim et Shabbat. The fact they keep the Shabbat. How do you keep the Shabbat? Respect it. You buy good foods, you buy good drink, kisut nikiyah, clean clothes, nice clothes for the Shabbat, and therefore a person must make a great effort. So the question over here is, what about the money a person spends? Is that considered money that he gets back, or is it considered money that is considered taken off his net? So the Tur writes over here that we have a statement. Ve'al yomar he'ach ihsar parnasati. Don't say, how am I going to lose my parnasah over giving all this money for the respect of the Shabbat? Yadraba im Yosif, Yosifu lo. One that spends money on the Shabbat, they hate him. כדתני תחליפה אבוהי דרבנאי חוזק כל פרנסתו של אדם קצובה לו מראש השנה לראש השנה. All a person's money is given to him and established from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. So the Tur comes along and says a person shouldn't say that he's going to lose out money for spending on Shabbat. Adrabah, Hamosif, Yosif Ulo, and like he quotes from the Gemara that all a person's salary is designated from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, except for the money that he spends on Shabbatot and Yamim Tovim, and the money that he spends the Hotza'at Banav the Talmud Torah, the money he spends on his children's education. And therefore you see that that's on God's hashbon. Therefore a person shouldn't be worried that he's losing money. Adrabah, God is going to fill the void that he spent, he's going to make that money back. But there's an interesting biur halakha over here. As important as it is, as we're saying, to be mechabed the Shabbat, still, he says like this. Let's say a person owes his workers money, and he has to pay them, let's say, on Erev Shabbat. That's when the money is due, because they did work for him. He hired a worker, let's say. But if he pays him the money, he's not going to have money for Shabbat. He's not going to be able to spend money on the Kabbalah Shabbat. What takes precedence? Paying the worker on time, or using that money for Shabbat and delaying the payment of the salary? So the biur halakha writes, ואם יש לו רק מעט מעות, ובא שכיר לתבוע עבור פעולתו שגמר לו היום, so he says that ed צריך לתנם לפועל. You have to give it to the worker. כדי לקיים מה שכתוב ביומו, תתן שכרו. There's a מצוות עשה in the Torah, to pay the worker on time. ולא תבוא עליו השמש. There's a lot ta'aseh as well, that you shouldn't wait till the sun sets to pay him. Even though you're not going to have any money left over to fulfill this mitzvah of owning Shabbat. Or or appease the worker, so you can please, can you mohel me and wait till after Shabbat till I get the money? If you can get an appeasement out of the guy, then that's okay also. Now what's the logic? The chiyuv tashlumei sachir bismanohu midoraita. That's a mitzvah deoraita to pay the work on time. This inyan of karat tashvat owning is from the prophets, which already is a lower level. And even if you want to say that the mitzvah of owning Shabbat is deoraita, but it's only a positive commandment. The mitzvah of paying the work on time is a mitzvah ta'aseh, ביומות תתן שכרו, and לא תעשה ולא תבוא עליו השמש. And we have a rule, אין עשה דוחה לא תעשה ועשה. And therefore, since over here it's 2-1, and you have a lo ta'aseh on that side, paying the worker is more important. So you see over there that the halakha is balanced. As much as the Torah is giving the kavod to the Shabbat, but there's the ben adam l'chavero as well that has to be taken into consideration. A person sitting having a lavish meal on Shabbat, and he didn't pay his workers on time, so already he didn't do right. He was supposed to make good on his personal payments, monetary obligations, before he goes and starts spending on the Shabbat itself. But for us, it's enough to say how important it is that a person should expend little extra monies, more than he does during the week, and Bezat Hashem, he will receive all the berachot that the Tur brings down in the Siman Neshman band.